Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Signs of the Swarm entitled To Rid Myself of Truth. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, talking about a brand new deathcore album in general, but especially from a band that is so hyped up and has so much clout and momentum behind them, has become quite the gamble for me, because I never really actually truly know what I'm getting myself into. Like, some of y'all, not all of y'all, but definitely some of y'all, have the tendency to really freak the fuck out and really hype the fuck up some of the most generic, mind-numbingly simple shit imaginable. And you act like it's the most earth-shattering, revolutionary, legendary shit that's ever existed. And I think that because of, like, reaction channels and shit like the Riff Referee and Nick Nocturnal, you just kind of expect that everybody's gonna share that feeling. That, like, someone like me is just gonna hear chugga 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 and go, oh! Because of this, I've come to dread talking about modern deathcore, and for this reason I can't really say that I was really pumped for, or excited about, or interested in To Rid Myself of Truth, the sixth full-length studio album from American deathcore crew Signs of the Swarm. These guys have been kicking around for roughly 15 years or so. There's always been a lot of hype surrounding them and everything they do, with this album being their biggest, most hyped up album to date. Despite that, I'm not really familiar with a lot of what they've done. I know that I've talked about them in the past, and albums that they've done like Absolvir and Amongst Alone Empty, and albums I missed videos, but off the top of my head, I don't really remember anything about those albums, or even if I, enjoyed them. Which means we're maybe not off to a super awesome start here today. Here's something I will say right off the bat, partially in hopes that it will prevent deathcore purists from lighting torches and sharpening pitchforks again, and also because it is genuinely how I feel. There is a good amount of hype surrounding this album, and I think it's mostly real. I think it's kind of valid, actually. Like, from start to finish, this is a pretty brutal, menacing album, and I'm happy to report that it isn't just that, you know? I'm happy to report that it isn't extremely repetitive and songs don't blur together, like on the Psycho Frame debut. I'm happy to report that there are a variety of different riffs and grooves and dynamics and influences existing across the album. I'm happy to report that the songs have, unique identities, kind of mixing things up a little bit, not to a colossal, alienating degree, but just enough so that the album feels fresh and funky and fun. Opening number and title track To Rid Myself of Truth, for instance, does a good job at blending more groovy deathcore with more full-blown brutal deathcore, like Our Endless War era Whitechapel, for example, mixed with Somatic Defilement era Whitechapel. The riffs and the grooves here are just so rich and earthy and gritty and have so much fucking body to them and are so fucking nasty. They can be a little obtuse too, almost like there's a little bit of just a little bit of a genty kind of underbite to it at times, and combined with some more frenzied kind of methodical and punishing kind of percussion, it definitely allows the band to show off some technical chops here and there without getting too artsy-fartsy and wild and techy and such. I also like the way the band uses wailing, shrieking guitars and more kind of ominous atmospheric textures and drum patterns and multi-layered kind of very acidic, venomous vocal sprawls to make something that feels genuinely really ominous and potent. Then there's Iron Sacrament, which wraps harmonized, nuanced, winding, full-blown technical death metal style guitar work around mountainous, towering sections of modern brutal deathcore with blast beats and chugging, grinding riffs and in-your-face abrasive vocal sprawls and assaults. It just feels immense too, big in size and scale and scope, a weird mix almost of revocation and shadow of intent in certain parts. Songs like Natural Selection and Scars Upon Scars do a great job at combining like pummeling, hard-hitting riffs and grooves with more choppy, kind of unpredictable, uneasy kind of little sprawls with like these almost glitchy kind of like patterns, more obtuse kinds of patterns, with vocals fading in and out, with odd timing here and there. It's almost giving like underneath era code orange, like that same kind of like sense of danger and unease and unpredictability. And then Forcing to Forget just totally catches me off guard by going into like somber, sobering, melancholic, almost kind of like deathcore ballad territory. It's emotive, it's expressive, it has very ambient atmospheric moments and tons of like clean, lush guitars contrasted with like harsh, brutal tones and like driving riffs and rhythms and guttural vocals. It even manages to pack in this kind of like nu metal angst and edge and melodicism in certain parts in a way that brings to mind like a mishmash of like classic Korn and Deftones. Without question, the most unique, memorable, poignant cut on the record, and without question also my favorite. And honestly, I just really appreciate how even when the album starts to get really weird and really big and really brutal, it's still grounded. Like, these guys are writing actual fucking songs with real, natural beginnings and middles and ends. It's not just a bunch of relentless, random fucking pounding. Everything is driven by, like, really strong choruses and really strong riffs and grooves and really strong songwriting and songcraft just consistently. A variety of different special guests across the record also help to bring in some extra seasoning and depth and, you know, just genuine vocal terror, like Phil Bozeman from Whitechapel, Will Ramos from Lorna Shore, and of course David Simonik himself is sounding like a feral fucking thing on this album. God damn. He just sounds like he's just vomiting pure fucking bile at certain points. Like, just nasty, gnarly shit all the way through. When they layer his vocals especially, it just sounds like a choir of like diseased, impish ghouls. There's real honesty and vulnerability to the lyricism as well, which I find surprising but refreshing. Like, Clouded Retinas, for instance, has David talking about his struggles with a degenerative macular eye disorder known as Stargardt disease. And the aforementioned Scars Upon Scars has David admitting, publicly for the first time to my knowledge, that he's a recovering drug addict, and the song details his ongoing struggles with his addictions and his attempts to kind of rise above it and be a better, healthier person. There are definitely a few little issues and setbacks here and there, like I think the album would in certain parts benefit from a sound mix, from a production that is, you know, a little less loud and big and compressed feeling. I also would have liked to have seen David go into way more provocative territory on certain songs and just really push himself. He hints at it, talking about the modern political kind of ecosystem, how hostile and divisive politics have become, and talking about prejudice as well. He hints at it, but like, really go for it, man. Like, let's fucking go for it. But other than that, I'm kind of impressed by this album. I went into it dreading it, fearing what it would actually be, fearing that it wouldn't live up to the hype, because these albums never fucking do. And it actually kinda did. I'm feeling a pretty strong, pretty enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. I would happily recommend this to people who love deathcore, no matter what they want from it, but especially if you are someone who loves your nasty, gnarly shit, because, you know, despite the fact that there's some pretty good lyricism and some pretty smart technical shit, it's also just full-blown fucking brutal from start to finish. I don't really have much more to say, and I've been sitting here for longer than I'm willing to admit, so I think this is a good place to start wrapping things up. The hype's actually kind of real with this one. 3.5 out of 5, a genuinely really good album. Check it out. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I am not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Boom, more videos. Join us on Discord. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.